you have any echinacea premium at home? Do you have any echinacea with you? Well, I think it might make you hotter. I just want to make sure I'm working on how you can get better. Okay, so I would, just for fun, tonight I would put one.
Hi Judy, thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions for anyone who is listening, feel free to write those in the comments. Thanks for joining me. My name is Joanne Doe. I'm a practitioner at Natural Healing Center. Today we're going to be talking about gut health, and I know it is a hot topic, especially in recent years with, the microbiome and all the research that has been going on in that area of the body, and digestive health issues becoming more common. So the gut health impacts our overall health in many ways. Our gut is responsible for breaking down and digesting the foods we consume, absorbing the minerals or the nutrients from them, and also eliminating any waste products in the process. Our gut health also impacts the health of our brain. You may have heard of that, like gut-brain connections. So if you imagine the gut isn't happy, the brain is going to be feeling that too, and vice versa. And then additionally, it's also going to impact our immune system health. And it's about 70% of our immune cells are actually in our gastrointestinal tract. So that's pretty interesting to note. So we want to make sure that that area of the body continues to be happy. If you are experiencing bloating, constipation, gas, diarrhea, abdominal pain, nausea, fatigue, poor sleep, skin irritations, bad breath, those can all be signs of an unhealthy gut. And so what I'm going to do today is walk you through the digestive system, pinpointing different areas and how we can support them in our diet and lifestyle practices. Because when we talk about gut health, we're really talking about the health of our entire digestive system. Hi, Kristen. This includes all the different parts of our body that are responsible for breaking down our foods into individual nutrients that we then use as energy to fuel and run our bodies. So digestion starts in your mouth, and I printed out this image for you guys. So this is our digestive system. So we're starting here in the mouth, and so digestion begins there, and what's happening is as you chew your food, you're having enzymes in the saliva helping to break it down and also to help lubricate the food so it's easier to swallow. So right then and there in your mouth is where you can start to support your digestive system and your gut health. So recommendations would be to really take time to sit down and eat. You want to be activating your parasympathetic nervous system when you eat. That's your rest and digest. So you have two parts. You have the fight or flight and the rest and digest. And so what would be helpful to do to help activate that part of your nervous system would be, sit down and take a few deep breaths before you start eating. You can even take a moment to bless your food. And the opposite of that would be like, eating standing up or eating on the go in your car. In those situations, it's more than likely that your sympathetic nervous system is more dominant, so you're in fight or flight, and digestion is not going to be existent there, because in those moments your body is saying, like, I'm under stress and I need to move my energy to handle those areas of stress, and I'm going to take energy away from things that aren't needed right now, including digestion. So make sure you sit down, you're eating your food, go for a few deep breaths, and also try to limit distractions. So I would highly suggest not looking at your phone or watching TV, especially the news. Try to eat in a peaceful setting. and take smaller bites than you would think, and really take the time to chew your food thoroughly. If you are experiencing any kind of digestive issues, go for like a good 30 chews before you swallow your food. And then from your mouth, your food moves down your esophagus, which is this narrow tube right here. And it uses, basically, as food is moving through the digestive system, it's moving by the use of like muscle contractions. So that's how food is moving down your esophagus. And then at the bottom of your esophagus right here, there's a valve-like structure, and it's called a sphincter. And what happens is when it relaxes, when the sphincter relaxes, it allows food to move into the stomach. And when it contracts, then it prevents food and from moving in, but also stomach acid from coming up. So when that sphincter isn't working properly, then you might experience, acid reflux, heartburn, GERD, that type of thing. And for a lot of people, when this is happening, it's really uncomfortable. So you might think a remedy would be to use something like an antacid. However, I would highly recommend avoiding overuse or prolonged use of antacids, because they essentially are reducing your stomach acid, which is crucial for being able to break down your foods and for your immune health. And I'm going to get to why stomach acid is so important in just a little bit. But what I would encourage you to do is to think of, stomach acid, it's reducing your stomach acid, and so you're having less of this discomfort, let's say. But it's really just, masking the symptom. And what I would encourage you to do is to explore why that sphincter isn't working in the first place. So what is the root cause? Why is that happening to begin with? Is it because of food sensitivities, eating certain foods that are causing inflammation? Could it potentially be like bugs, like a bacteria or a pathogen that's stressing out that part of the body and now it's not working optimally? And then additionally, all the organs in the body are connected to each other. So could it be that, something in the brain, maybe you hit your head, maybe you had a concussion, now the messages aren't getting to where they need to go and the sphincter isn't operating the way that it should. So that's what we do here. That's what we test for. Our processes aim to get to the root cause of patients' symptoms. So just something to think about in terms of, why is this happening in my body? What are these symptoms telling me? Your body's always trying to communicate with you. And if you are experiencing symptoms of like acid reflux or GERD, it would be in your best interest to avoid foods that raise the acid in your stomach. So these would be like caffeine, so foods, drinking like coffee, soda, energy drinks, also alcohol. I would also, hi Sandra, I would also avoid alcohol, tomatoes, fried food, so foods fried in oil, or spicy foods that can exacerbate those symptoms as well. Okay, and then after the food moves down the esophagus, it gets to your stomach. So this is this part right here. And your stomach can stretch to hold the foods that we eat. It contains enzymes to help break down your foods, and also a very strong stomach acid, which is essential for the digestive process. Stomach acid allows your body to break down food and absorb the minerals and proteins from the food we eat. It also protects your body from harmful pathogens like yeast, virus, bacteria that may enter the body through our air, food, and water. So your stomach acid is essentially your first line of defense, and you want to make sure that you have enough in order to neutralize those pathogens right then and there, because if not, they're going to infiltrate further into your GI tract. And imagine if they move from the stomach to the small intestines or the large intestines, and your what is called like leaky gut, like the walls of the intestines is compromised, then they can even further move from the digestive tract to other parts of your body. So it's why it's really, one of the reasons why it's really important to have stomach acid. And our choices with the foods we eat and our lifestyle play a huge part in the amount of stomach acid that we have. So if you are consuming a lot of sugar, if you're consuming a lot of processed food, if you're eating really fast, if you have like chronic high levels of stress, you take a lot of antacids or prescription drugs, if you're a little bit older, say 65 years or older, or you use certain toothpaste or personal care products, these lifestyle and nutritional choices, they can all have an impact on our stomach acid. So the good news is there are natural ways that we can increase our stomach acid. So one would be reducing or eliminating processed foods and sugars. So that would be like your typical sugar that you think of, like your white sugar, but it would also be other sugars like honey and agave. It would be those refined carbs like white flours, food additives, table salt, refined oils, alcohol, caffeine, and this might seem overwhelming as I say all this, and that's okay. So you don't have to nix everything overnight. You can just start to kind of pay attention to if you're having any of those foods and working to decrease them over time. Things that also help with increasing stomach acid would be like eating fermented vegetables. So I probably have mentioned sauerkraut on every Facebook Live, but that's because it's such a healing food. It has really good probiotics. It's great for healthy bowel movements. It's high in water and fiber. But you can also get good probiotics from drinking like kefir or like a kombucha, and if you're doing that, then I would recommend a sugar-free one. Stress is a huge part in the amount of stomach acid we may or may not have. So you want to find ways to, artificial sugars too. That's a really good point, Judy. You want to find ways to help reduce sources of stress, maybe creating boundaries at work or at home with other people, or finding ways to cope with stress in a beneficial way. So I know a lot of times we get stressed and our go-to might be to have a drink or to snack on really comforting foods. But I would encourage you to take a look at ways to cope with stress that would work to lower stress, but also would be beneficial for you. So that might look like deep breathing, taking big breaths. I always go for if I feel stressed or overwhelmed in a moment and I can catch myself, I'll take a big breath in through my nose and then an even longer exhale through my mouth and let myself soften. Yeah, walk, meditation is great. Calling a friend, spending time with friends or family, even your pets. I think spending time in nature is great, connecting to something bigger than yourself. So it's whatever works for you, whatever helps you de-stress, and you can always kind of check in with yourself in the moment and see what would be most beneficial for you. In terms of personal care product, what the type of toothpaste we use can have a big impact on stomach acid. So I would go for one that is both fluoride free and sodium lauryl sulfate free. And there's so many brands available right now. Some of the ones that I recommend are Burt's Bees, Hello, Luminex is another one, but there are so many that you can find, even just at your health food store or Target. They're pretty available. Another one, we already talked about the prolonged use of antacids, which reduce stomach acid, so I would try to minimize that or not use that at all. Another thing you can do is to look at a whole food supplement that contains what's called benzene hydrochloride, and that is essentially what is stomach acid to help break down your foods. So one that we use quite often is called Zypan. It's from Standard Process. It's a whole food supplement, and it works really, really well with aiding in digestion. Okay, so from the stomach has worked to partially digest the food, and now it's going to be moving via muscle contractions into the small intestines, which is right here. So the small intestines, even though it's small, it's quite long. It's 22 to 26 feet long in adults. And this is where most of the nutrients in our body is absorbed. So what is on the stomach acid, the small intestines, imagine this is like the wall of the small intestines. And yes, papaya enzymes, those have tested well for, everyone's different, so we like to muscle test to make sure certain supplements are going to work well for people. So it could be very much the case that papaya enzymes might work for you. That's something that we could take a look at. But I've had a lot of clients and friends who have used those enzymes before, and it's been beneficial for them. So, okay, say this is the wall of the small intestines. There's like these hair-like structures that line the walls, and they're called villi. And what they do is they increase the surface area in the small intestines so that it can absorb even more nutrients from your food. And as mentioned before, most of the immune cells in the digestive tract are in the small intestines, so about over 70%. And it's important to note that if you're eating sugar, this can impair the function of your immune cells for up to 50% for up to 5 hours, and that's about 1 to 2 hours after eating it. So want to be mindful of that. And then once the food moves through the small intestines, it gets to the large intestines here. Okay, and that one is about 5 to 8 feet long. It's home to about 50 to 100 trillion bacteria and other microorganisms, and that's what we call the gut microbiome. So the gut microbiome refers to microorganisms living in your intestines. Some organisms are harmful to our health, but many are incredibly beneficial and even necessary for how our body functions. So what's important to note with the microbiome is that you want to go for a large variety and diversity of bacteria and other living microorganisms in the gut, and we can support that through food and lifestyle choices. So I'm going to go through some tips in promoting a healthy gut microbiome. So one thing that you want to do is reduce the amount of sugar, because a diet high in sugar and also processed foods can decrease the amount of good bacteria and diversity in the gut. Another thing to think of too is, like, as you're having these processed sugary foods that don't have a whole lot of nutritional content, what's happening is that food is moving through your digestive tract and it's getting to your intestines where the nutrients are absorbed. And what can happen is, if your intestines is absorbing the nutrients but there's really not that much, it's going to signal to the brain like, oh, I need more food, like I need more nutrients, right? And then it's going to trigger you to eat, and then you're going to eat more of that sugary processed food, and then the same thing is going to happen. It's not going to get the nutrients it needs, and it's going to signal you to eat again. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle. So it's not uncommon that maybe someone who is overweight is actually like malnourished, because even though they might be eating, they're not getting a whole lot of nutrients from their food. Another thing to keep in mind with gut health and keeping the balance in the gut and the microbiome is getting tested for bugs, specifically parasites. So parasites have been known to cling to the wall of our intestines, and as they do so, they are basically absorbing and eating the nutrients from our food before we can. And what works really well for parasites is we usually check for herbal supplements, and there's either going to be one that sticks to them really, really well and pulls them off of the intestinal walls, or we have like other ones that will actually like paralyze the parasites in the intestines. And then you have something else that you take that's called a binder, and it's basically there to sweep up the trash. So it's binding to those dead bodies or those toxins, and it's helping you to eliminate them through your bowel movements. And you need both of those. I gave another talk about parasites last month, so if you are interested in learning more, you can go back and read and kind of watch the replay on that one, because they can lead to a myriad of different health conditions, and they can, a lot of times they reside in the gut, but they can move to other areas as well. So if you are taking like a stool sample, let's say, a lot of times parasites will get missed, partially because, the stool sample that they take from the actual like stool you submit is quite small, so it could be in a different area of the stool. Or if the parasite has moved from your gut to like your heart or your lungs or your brain, then that stool sample isn't going to catch it either. Okay, so you can watch that video for a little bit more information on parasites. Another thing you want to check for is food sensitivities. So common food sensitivities that we test for here would be wheat, corn, soy, sugar, dairy, sometimes nightshades. And when you have foods your body's sensitive to, it can cause swelling, bloating, inflammation. And then also when you have foods your body's sensitive to, it adds stress to your body, and now your body is exerting its energy to handle that stress. So imagine if you were to reduce or avoid those foods completely. Now the stress, now the inflammation and swelling is reduced, and then in addition to that, your body, it like frees your body up of that energy that it was previously using to handle that stress, to be able to do other things that you need to get done. Okay, drinking plenty of water can also increase biodiversity in the gut, and it also helps to prevent constipation. So you want to go for half your body weight in ounces a day. So if you weigh like 150 pounds, then you want to shoot to get 75 ounces of water per day. Best time of day to drink water is in the mornings. So start your day with a tall glass of water. Try to get most of your water in during the day if you can. Kind of taper off into the evening before you go to bed. Other things you can do to promote good gut health would be eating probiotic and prebiotic rich foods. So probiotics, those foods actually contain the actual living like bacteria and cultures. You can find probiotics in like foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, raw milk, or raw cheese. So the difference between raw and like a lot of the milks that you'll find at the grocery store is that they haven't been heated in the processing, so that they still contain the enzymes, okay, and probiotic, those living cultures. You could also do like a goat, sheep, or plant-based yogurt that would contain prebiotics or probiotics as well. Or you could also consider a probiotic supplement. We use one from Standard Process from time to time. Again, we'll test clients to see if it's if their body tests well for it and if it's necessary for their healing. But if you are choosing to take a probiotic, go with high quality whole food, work with a healthcare practitioner if you have questions. And then there's also prebiotic foods, and these are basically the food for the probiotic cultures. So prebiotic foods are meant to promote the growth of beneficial bacteria, and these foods would be like certain vegetables, like fibrous vegetables like broccoli and asparagus, nuts like almonds and pistachios, legumes, so black beans and chickpeas, if those foods are okay for you. Again, we would, if you're a client here, then we could test you for those sensitivities, or if you have any other stress on the body, to see if those foods are okay for you right now. Okay, avoid the overuse of antibiotics, since they kill everything, the good along with the bad, and they reduce the diversity and variety of microorganisms in the gut. Okay, so in the large intestines, or in the colon, which we were just talking about. So at the point when the stomach gives the food to the small intestines, it's partially digested, and then it goes more into like a water, and that's when it goes into the large intestines. And then it goes here at the bottom of the large intestines, it gets to the rectum. This is like right above the anus, and that's where more of like the water is being absorbed, and what you're left with is your stool, essentially. So the rectum's main job is to hold the stools until we can empty our bowels. So when anything goes into the rectum, whether that's gas or whether it's stool, there is nerve endings here that will send a message to the brain, and then the brain will decide if the contents of this can be released. Underneath that is the anus. It's also known as an anal sphincter, and it's the last part of our digestive tract. And the sphincter muscles are vital in helping control the passage of the stool. When we lose that ability to control the stools, that's called incontinence. So when it comes to gut health, one thing to consider are your bowel movements. So if things are moving way too quickly, hi Susanna, oh, it's so nice meeting you today. If things are moving way too quickly, like say for example you have like watery stools or diarrhea, or if things are taking too long, like you're constipated, that can be a sign of some kind of issue going on in the gut. So what we look for is stools to be medium to dark brown, that they're smooth, sausage-like, and you're able to pass them without pain, excessive bloating, or gas. Everyone is different. Everyone is different. We can definitely chat, Judy. So it could be that you're going once a day or multiple times a day, but what we really like to see with clients is they're going at least once a day, their stool is medium to dark brown, and they're able to pass it fairly easily. Signs of constipation, if you're having trouble going to the bathroom, some recommendations I have are to eat foods that are really rich in fiber and water content. So that would be like lettuce and sauerkraut. Also, that you're getting a good amount of healthy fats. So olive oil, chia seeds, and soak your chia seeds. This is like a tip for gut health overall, is that if you're having seeds like buckwheat, chia seeds, it would be really good to soak them in water, maybe for a couple hours or overnight. It's going to help you digest them better. But if you're having issues with constipation, then try for like 1 to 2 tablespoons of chia seed in water. Let them plump up for like at least a half hour, and then you can drink it. So what you can, sometimes we recommend to clients, like, go for like a head of lettuce a day and dress it with olive oil, sea salt, sauerkraut juice, have the sauerkraut with it. That in itself is going to be really good for your bowels. When you're stressed, it's going to be harder to go to the bathroom too. So make sure, practice your breathing exercises, especially if you're on the toilet and you're having a hard time going. If it's more like chronic constipation, then or some, you know, a really bad episode, then other things that you can try are drinking like salt water, and not just like a little bit of salt, but go for like a decent amount of salt in your water to help float the stools out. Epsom salt baths can be really great as well. So you're just taking an Epsom salt bath, and then I would recommend this, you know, but I would want to test you on it first, is doing an enema. And that can be really good for just like detoxing the body. And if you haven't done an enema before, then you could do like a water enema. You could work your way up to a chamomile tea enema. And then, you know, if needed and if you want to, then you could do a coffee enema. And it's really good at flushing out toxins in the gut. Okay. If the opposite is true and you're having diarrhea, I like all these shocked emojis, thank you. If you're having diarrhea and it's acute, like it's just something that came up all of a sudden, something that comes to mind is just like bacteria. So like if you're on vacation and you had food that was different and now you're having diarrhea, then one thing that you could try is with the sauerkraut juice. Like, so you get sauerkraut from the store and you do like a few big gulps of that sauerkraut juice, and then you lie down because you want your body to absorb it. If you're standing up, it might go right through you. So you lie down, and it's going to help to reestablish the gut flora in there. There are supplements too that we could test you on for constipation and diarrhea to help you with more regular bowel movements. But oftentimes, like chronic diarrhea can be a sign of like exhaustion. So I would consider like making sure that you are taking time to practice those strategies to help you deal with stress, but also consider doing less of anything. So like if you're feeling like overstretched in certain areas of your life, whether that is too many commitments to friends and family, whether it's like too much at work, then I would consider like what you can, you know, delegate and take off your plate so that you're doing less, because that'll really help calm the body down too. All right, so in that last half hour, we moved from the mouth all the way down to the anus, going over all the organs of our digestive system. And you can see at every stage, every step of the way, there's ways that we can work to promote a healthy gut. So a couple big things or big themes that came up, you know, really take the time to activate that parasympathetic part of your nervous system, especially when you are eating. So sit down peacefully, eat your food, chew it really, really well, no distractions, take your time. And then in terms of food choices, work on reducing sugar and processed foods. Try to get in more prebiotic and probiotic rich foods, lots of water. Find ways to reduce sources of stress or mitigate stress. Another great thing for gut health is just making sure that you're getting good, consistent sleep. So go for 7 to 8 hours a night. If you can, do more. Those would be really great to do. Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the chat. I honestly can't remember what the topic is for next week, but I'm going to post the event in the next day or two. Is taking coconut oil good for people with bad memory? So do you mean eating the coconut oil? You know what, like omegas and essential fats are really good for memory. So I'm not sure about coconut oil, but one that I would recommend is actually like tuna oil. And again, we could test to see if that agrees with you, because your body wants to prioritize, you know, certain parts of the body, certain healing, certain supplements at specific times. Hi, Roxanne. But tuna oil could definitely help with memory. Other things that we could look at are like bacopa is really good as well. But also if there's any kind of stress going on in the body that is attributing to that memory. Is it like oftentimes with like bugs, like yeast, there's a lot of brain fog and memory issues. So, you know, anything can cause anything. So we want to make sure that we are getting to the root cause of why you're experiencing those symptoms. So just a little intro if you haven't met me before. My name's Joanne. I'm a practitioner at Natural Healing Center. Our processes aim to address the root cause of patient symptoms. We see a lot of clients with digestive issues, hormone imbalance, skin issues, headaches. The list goes on, but those are some of the main ones that we see here. And we work to use nutrition response testing, which is a type of muscle testing, to identify areas of stress in the body. So that could be part of your digestive system, hormones, but we also will see what is causing that stress. So maybe metals, chemicals, scars, food sensitivities, and then what would work in terms of a natural remedy to help rebalance those parts of the body. So that could be looking like changing your foods, taking certain herbal, homeopathic, stem cell supplements, and then we work with you over time to make sure that you're getting better and that your areas of concern are getting addressed in a natural and effective way. Typically, a consultation with myself is $2.99. If you mention this Facebook Live, you'll get a $50 discount, so that brings the price down to $2.49. It takes place over 2 days' time. One day we do all the testing, the other day we go all over the results and the recommendations in your case specifically. We tailor a program specifically towards your concerns, your needs, and how your body tests what presented itself. So it's pretty in-depth, and it'll give you a lot of good value whether or not you decide to go beyond that. But if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And I'm here every Thursday doing a Facebook Live on a different topic. I actually came back to mind now, so I'm pretty sure that next week's topic is common inflammatory foods. So we went over some of those. Some of the most common ones we see: wheat, soy, corn, dairy, sugar, nightshades, caffeine, beans. I'm going to be giving alternatives to those. So let's say if someone is trying to reduce sugar in their diet, okay? So that doesn't mean that they need to avoid every sweetener, but there could be ones that work well for them. So like a good quality stevia, a monk fruit, potentially coconut sugar, or if someone is working to reduce like corn, if they're having like corn chips and corn tortillas and things like that, then maybe they could do like cassava tortillas or almond flour tortillas, or potentially like egg life wraps or jicama wraps. So I'll be giving like all kind of suggestions like that would be really practical if you know you have some food sensitivities, or if you're curious about trying and making certain swaps for certain foods, then that would be a really good one for you to tune into. And if you can't do it live, no worries, then you can always catch the replay. But I want to thank you guys all so much for joining me this evening. Always appreciate you having you on here and for your support. And hi, Amy, I know you just joined, but you can catch the replay too once this is done. I hope you have a beautiful night, day, evening, morning, wherever you are, if you're catching the replay. And I hope to connect with you guys soon. Thanks so much.